what was your call to adventure? What was that moment in your life where it's just everything changed?
Yeah, I think that probably a cancer diagnosis was that, because if we roll back 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, middle of the pandemic. It was in the August, so times were sort of kind of like loosening up a little bit, and just come back from 10B and found a lump in my breast, and then checked out it was cancer. Because I'd worked hard for a couple of years before that to get to what was, I thought, the peak of my fitness at that point. I was the fittest, the healthiest I'd ever been, and yet here was this thing trying to take it away from me. And I was massively angry about it. And I thought, I've got to do everything that I can to fight for my fitness, to fight to get it back potentially, because I didn't know what lay ahead of me in terms of what I'd have to go through, and how that would leave me afterwards, which I think is also a big thing. So really, it was a sort of wake-up call. Oh my God, your health and your fitness is a gift. It's a gift, and it can be taken away from you. And so now I feel that I want to explore that gift, and I want to see what I've got in me, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know when that could be taken away from you.
Yeah.
It can all change just like that and be gone. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about wanting to use it, not lose it, and just to see what I can do. That really is it.
Yeah. So how did the cancer diagnosis affect you then? What did you have to go through with that whole journey?
Yeah. So when I was initially diagnosed, it was diagnosed as a grade 1 stage 1 tumour, which it felt to be roughly about the size, somewhere between grape, a bit bigger. And they will do a biopsy that determines what type of cancer it is, and mine was what's called a hormone positive cancer. So it was it reacts to the input of things like estrogen. So it was estrogen progesterone positive and HER2 protein negative. Ordinarily, that means surgery of some sort, and then dependent on a number of factors such as your age, your menopausal status, how reactive it is to proteins and how reactive it is to estrogens, how quickly those things make it grow, determines whether or not you need chemotherapy. So I had surgery initially. I had a lumpectomy. I didn't have to have a full mastectomy. And then I had to wait about 8 weeks before I had the results about whether or not I needed to have chemotherapy. So they analyse it because of the stage and where it was. It was actually sent to America. So my nipple got sent to America. It got lost in the post in America for a number of weeks, and then turned up at, I think, at a DHL depot in Texas somewhere, which I was like, really, again, I was pretty pissed about that, because it got to go to America and I didn't. But the good news was it came back and they score you out of 100, and on the NHS, if you are 25 or over in the scoring, then it's definitely chemotherapy. If you're in the 20 to 25 bracket, it's maybe, and under that, it's up to you. My score came back as 18, so low risk of recurrence, because they look at how likely it is that you'll get it again. And my score came back as 18, and they gave me the choice: did I want to throw everything that I could at it or not? And I had quite a frank conversation with the oncologist where I said, look, chemotherapy is basically you poison someone, you poison someone as far as you possibly can poison them without killing them, so as to kill that disease and any residual cancer that may be floating around as a cell, a developing cell in their body. And it can have permanent effects for some people. Some people will never get back to the full stage fitness. And so given the choice, I said, no, I won't, thanks. I don't know whether that's the right choice or not. It's something that I'll live with.
Yeah.
Who knows? So again, there were other elements of treatment that I was offered. Another one called Zoladex, which basically shuts down your ovaries. Again, a source of estrogen, because they don't want any more estrogen floating around in your body that could potentially turn into cancerous cells. And I declined that as well. Again, I don't know whether that's the right decision or not, but it was right for me at the time.
Yeah. Have you had any side effects of like post-treatment, anything that's sort of affected your day-to-day?
Yeah. So active, they categorise treatment into different ways. They have your active treatment, which is your chemotherapy, radiotherapy. I had 3 weeks intensive radiotherapy, and that sort of covered like neck down into ribs through armpit. And again, lots of things that you don't realise about it, like as well as like it radiating the front of you. If you're not heavily built, it comes through your back, and so you get like a radiation mark coming straight through the other side. So some skin issues from that. Scar tightness, I still get aching scars now. Cold weather, if I've trained a lot, tightness and scars. And I'm also on an adjuvant treatment for 10 years from the end of my radiotherapy, which means that I take daily tablets called tamoxifen. They block estrogen receptors, so effectively if there are any estrogen cells floating around, they can't make the link with a receptor cell to make a new cancer. That's the idea anyway. It's a nasty drug. It's not nice. It's meant to be that every brand has the same active ingredient, tamoxifen, but a lot of people that have to take it will tell you that you can go from one brand and have pretty much not many side effects, or try a new one and then all of a sudden you've got gastric issues, you've got hot flushes, you've got migraines. For me, the biggest impact that I've got is it affects my joints. So I can't, when I stand up and down, I creak. It's like my knees creak, my elbows creak, my joints hurt. It has an effect on your training. I can't do a push-up the way that I used to, which annoys me because my elbows won't do it anymore. I can't squat like I used to because my knees won't do it, which annoys me. And I don't know whether now I will ever, when there comes a time when I'm not on that drug anymore, if it will get better.
Yeah.
Or if that's it now. I don't know.
Does it affect your running as well?
It must do to the effect that it affects my joints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is incredible considering what you're now doing.
Yes.
Yeah, 100-miler is hard enough without bad joints.
Without aching, yeah.
Yeah, that is phenomenal that you're still just pushing through, like so many people probably just wouldn't.
Yeah, but again, it goes back to my thought that it's an absolute gift and that you don't know when you're not going to be able to do it. I don't know what's going to happen next year. I might break an ankle or something, but
yeah. For
now, I can do it.
Yeah.
For now, I can do it, and I'm going to keep on doing it.
No, fair play to you. Hats off. What was like your training and your activity level like pre-cancer diagnosis then?
So So pre-cancer, I would say probably about 2018 I started to look after myself a bit more, because at that point a lot of women will talk to you about perimenopause. I was probably pretty early going into it, and I was having a lot of mental health symptoms that are associated with it. So things like anxiety, mood swings. You can go from 1 minute being like very sad, and then the next minute in an absolute rage. I had started lifting weights more, and I had picked up running. I'd signed up to do Cardiff Half Marathon to raise money at a charity place for Mind at the time. When I had done that, I then just carried on running more and more, and so we sort of got through 2019. So within the first year of running, I'd got up to marathon distance, from never having run ever before, and then so I was probably lifting weights about 4 times a week, running about 3 times a week roughly. I got up to marathon distance, and I had no desires to go any further than a marathon. I'd done Newport Marathon, that was it. And then coming into 2020, I had a stress fracture, probably because I'd done too much running, and I had accelerated too quickly without any sort of advice or structure, but just a will to go out and collect shiny things from races, which I was really enjoying. But I think at that stage it was half marathon that was my thing. I was like, right, I want to do another half marathon. I like a half marathon. The road marathon, okay, yeah, it ticked a lot of boxes, a lot of dopamine boxes, and made me very happy. But I didn't necessarily know whether I wanted to commit to the volume of training for a marathon. And now look what happened.
Now you're doing ultras.
And now I'm doing ultras.
When did the ultras sort of come into play?
At the end of the cancer treatment, at the end of active treatment. My friend Emma, who got me into running, she not only got me into running, she got me doing Couch to 5K. She signed me up as a run leader within the first 6 months, got me pulled into that. She then had said, I quite fancy doing a 50k, anybody want to do it with me? I was like, yeah, I quite fancy, I'll do that. And so I did Race to the Stones 50k, and that marked exactly 3 months after the end of my active treatment. So I'd carried on running immediately as soon as I could after surgery, and then throughout my radiotherapy I just did several blocks of 13 miles, just as a sort of like big middle finger up, to say, fuck you, I'm not letting this, I'm not having this take it away from me, I'm not doing it. So that was the first ultra, and that was kind of how I got there.
Yeah. How was the experience for your first one?
The first one, that was fine. It was broken mentally. It's easier to break it down into small chunks. No doubt people will say break it down into between the checkpoints, but that I think that if you'd have told me that I would sign up to do 100k having done 50k, I wouldn't have believed you. But it was fine. You know, we got to the end. It was a long, hot day. Yes, we were tired, but yes, it was a fun day out. We had a good time. We chatted, we laughed, and we got it done in the daytime. But then that next stage, when you go up the distance, that's when things really change.
Yeah. When did you then up the distance if you wasn't keen after your first one?
I think, had I already booked in? Yeah, so the 50k is roughly about 31 miles ish, and I had booked onto the Pegasus Bogan that year. That year, because of COVID, it was in the August bank holiday, So that was my first 40 miles, and that didn't put me off either. And I think that just fueled it really. So I think that's what's to blame for dropping the distance. I can't remember when it was that I signed up to do 100k. The first one I did though was 2022, so that was Race to the Stones 2022. Again, there was a big group of us from She Runs Cardiff. I think there was 7 or 8 of us all together, and we decided that we would like to give it a whirl.
Yeah. How did it go?
Yeah.
That sums it up. Yeah, it went.
It went. It went. We all went out. As a group, we work really well together. We will. I guess we all sort of like adopt different roles. You know, some will be keeping the mood up. Some will be on the timer saying, right, buzzer's just gone off. Let's eat or drink something. It worked really well, and you know, Sam, Amy, I still run with them now. They did the Epona as well, Sharon as well. So we're a group that works pretty well together, basically. So there were no major issues. You know, there were obviously injury niggles, feet issues, that kind of thing, but on the whole, we got to the end and we were absolutely buzzing from it, and obviously not put off, because then we decided to do the same again the following year.
Do you always do these events as a group then, with She Runs?
I have done, and it's something that came into play at the Epona, because we had gone out as a group of 5, and with realistic expectations though, to sort of say, right, okay, we appreciate that we are a group of 5 women. 5 women faff a lot. Unless you can coordinate your faffing, that faffing can take a lot of time. And when you're against the clock, ultimately that one is against the clock. Most of the Pegasus events are not, but this one had to be. We had said that we would try to keep together as best we could, and if we split into 2 smaller groups, that would be fine. And that's what we did. But when Sharon and Catherine had to pull out through illness and injury, I was on my own. I was like, oh shit. I hadn't mentally prepared for that was a possibility, which I should have. You know, every time we go out to do something, it's a learning experience at the end of the day. And I think that perhaps I should have really thought, okay, this is something that I need to see where I am on my own. So I think my next race will be on my own, just to see what I can do for myself on my own time schedule.
Yeah.
Because every race that I have done, I've done it with other people, and I have tended to fit in with what they're doing. So I don't know what I can do.
Yeah.
For myself on my own, and I think that's what I really need to explore.
Yeah. Do you have a race in mind for that?
I do have one in mind. I haven't yet booked it. It's middle of September. I just need to make a decision about distance, which distance option. What I'm going to try. But I think it's going to be a test.
Yeah.
Definite test.
How do you find the group dynamic? Like, does it help you with your running, do you think? Or do you think it might hinder it?
Very good question. I think that there were, with hindsight on Epona, there are bits that I could have run when others couldn't, and probably vice versa. So I think in terms of putting that together, there are different races that we all could have had, and that works both ways, I think.
Yeah.
I would like to see what I can do on my own though, on my own time scale, to my own pace, because I think unless you are out there actually doing it, you don't know, do you?
Yeah.
You don't know what the untapped level is.
See, I've never really run with anyone. I did a run club, but that was me organising it, and I was like, we're going to the slowest person's pace, and it's an easy run for me. So
you have always gone to your own tune.
Yeah. And then I think I've been running. I ran with Jenks and Lee. But again, that was just a nice, easy run. It's not an event. We were just running around Barry, having a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
So it's been very rare that I've actually just run with people. I've never done an event with anyone.
Yeah.
I've always just signed up to events and not known anyone there, and just turned up and been like, oh, I'll just run.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested into, like, especially on an ultra, how a group dynamic could work.
Yeah. I think we all sort of we fit into different roles, and we fall into those at any given time. Someone will be the mood lifter, a bit of comedy banter, bit of humour, someone bring the music, someone else with the snacks, someone else with the sweets, that kind of thing. It does turn into a bit of like a day trip. It's like a rolling picnic that goes on for a very long time. And again, I've had people ask, what do you talk about for 9 hours? It's like, everything. We can talk all day long,
Yeah. That's the thing with ultras, is you get into literally everything you can imagine, from something that's like really serious, like some deep-seated trauma, all the way to like
my trauma
yeah. And then it will go all the way to just like the most random topics as well. There's like no in between. You're just either end of the scale. It's either dead serious or just a massive joke.
Yeah. And there are the times of just silence where everybody is struggling, but mostly we're okay with one another, that we can sit with each other's silence, as it were, and just continue and know it's okay not to feel the pressure of having to speak. Yeah.
What would you say your role is then? What role do you just assume when you're in a group?
I think that I am the come on chaps. So we have the bits where we'll be undoubtedly walking, because you do hit points where you struggle. Ultras are a lot of walking at the end of the day. Every uphill is like, right, okay, we're having a walk now, but it's the getting back going again. So I think that I am the sort of gear-upper, I think. I'm not the navigator. Navigationally challenged, that's not me.
That must have been quite a challenge then, when you was then left on your own.
Yeah, fortunately, that it was on a section that I had recce'd. We had recce'd it before. So I don't know how I would fare in a race where I haven't recce'd the course. May find out very soon.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting learning curve there.
Yeah, definitely. Most of the section so it was a 17-mile block that I was on my own, and it was going out of Crickhowell, up Table Mountain and across Weinbach, and then down what I call the Dead Christmas Tree Farm, where Christmas trees go to die. Unless you've been there to see it, it will make no sense. But if you see it, you'll go, oh yeah, right, okay. When I had, it was only the sort of bottom section coming down the fire road there that I hadn't done, and so I was doing that section for the first time on my own. There was a weird bit at the bottom, and I think that most people that did the Epona would say, yeah, that was a little bit confusing, and I think the directional arrow had just sort of like tucked slightly away, and it wasn't clear if you actually had to go through a tree to get a fallen tree. And we're like, oh, right, okay. So some people went, depending on their size, so depending on height, some people went under it. I was too big to go under it. Some people went over it. There was no chance I was getting over that. I'm not that agile. And so I decided that I was going to try and sort of like go through it and lift it up. And so I lifted up this tree and sort of got underneath it. And so then I've got this tree on my back. And I'm thinking, oh, this cannot be right. This can't be right. And so I did eventually then reroute myself, came back. But hearing other people, they did the same. They also missed the footbridge and thought that you had to sort of like go across another fallen tree across the stream that looked like a balance beam. But it was ridiculous because I got into the checkpoint and I had like bits of tree stuck in my head. And I was like, yeah, I've just been through the tree. Did anyone else go through the tree?
Yeah, ultras are difficult to navigate. I can only imagine what it's like on a 100-miler because I've done 50Ks and that's enough for me.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there are the bigger events are really like well marked, but I think once you get to the smaller local ones, there's only so much that can be done in terms of navigation and marking that isn't on a GPX file that you can take on your watch or your phone or OS Maps or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't always have any phone signal, so it needs to be something that's available offline. So you need to be able to read where you are as well. That's my problem.
Trying to figure out where you are.
Yeah. And particularly when you're tired as well, you're not thinking right. Your mind is playing tricks on you. That by then I was hallucinating through lack of sleep. I kept seeing in my peripheral vision, I thought that there were low-hanging branches, and every time I looked up, they weren't there. So I'd be concentrating, thinking, don't fall over your feet because you're tired. So eyes kind of half to the ground and looking what's ahead underfoot. But then just catching and kind of like half ducking all the time. And also seeing faces in the lichen on the rocks. So like smiley faces, that was weird.
Yeah. I can imagine. I've had like one hallucination doing the 3 peaks, and that was just I like walked past a rock and I thought there was someone sitting there, and I just went, and then I double took because I was going to see if they were all right, and I looked, I was like, there's no one there. That is just a rock.
I had similar going into the second night. Because as sort of dusk fell, rocks looked like people that were sort of huddled in a cloak. That's what it looked like, and that was a little bit creepy.
I can't imagine as creepy as the faces.
I don't know. The faces were very non-threatening.
Okay.
They weren't aggressive. I think some people had some like real nasty ones, but I think that I will take smiley face hallucinations if that's the way it's going to go. Yeah,
there's definitely worse things to hallucinate.
Absolutely.
I always think back, I listened to a Courtney DeWalter podcast.
Yep.
She's talking about seeing like a cello man and stuff in the woods, and I'm like, that is quite a cool hallucination to have. But also a bit creepy because if you can't hear any music and you're just seeing a man playing the cello but it's silent,
what's going on there?
Yeah, that would probably freak me out a bit.
Might speed up the pace though, you know.
Yeah.
Threat.
There we go. Maybe that's why you get faster. Negative split an ultra.
Yeah, and I did do that actually. I think I will say a lot came down to having a pacer from the final few checkpoints that came with me. She was Frankie was pacing and crewing our team, and she picked me up and got me going again. Basically, she got me on a good uphill stomp, and then when I then saw Kev Madden, do you know Kev?
Yeah.
Kev told me at the next checkpoint then, so we were like 70 8 miles in, between 78 and 80 miles roughly, and he said the other two are 45 minutes ahead of you. You can catch them. And I was like, right, give it a go. And I was like woman on a mission then. And I ran, I think, probably my fastest times throughout the whole event from that point onwards, going over the top of Offa's Dyke. And I don't quite know where that came from, other than something lit the fire in my belly to give it a go and cut through what was obvious pain at that point.
Yeah.
Whenever I stopped to drink or just, you know, fiddle, sort something out, you could see my shin muscles spasming. They're just like twitching away. From the last checkpoint, another friend of mine, Kate, turned up as a complete surprise. I caught them at that point at Lantoni Priory, and we all went together from there and hiked the last 10 miles.
Yeah.
But that was just grim. It was grim.
There's so much more to think about in an ultra than a marathon. Like, thinking about it from what we've just spoke about, because in a marathon you just turn up, there's a course laid out,
Yep.
you run the course, and there's like water stations however far apart. It's like really easy to do in the sense of you are just running. Yeah. Whereas an ultra, you've got more nutritional needs that you have to heavily consider.
Yeah.
You've got the sleep deprivation, the navigation, potentially going through the night depending on the distance.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much more to it that I don't think a lot of people realise.
No, the biggest thing, I think, if you don't fuel properly, that's where you're really going to come unstuck. If you're not fueled and hydrated, yeah, you can probably manage through painful feet, you can manage your pain thresholds, but if your body doesn't have enough sufficient availability to it to actually move, fire, stoke the engine, as it were, then it's just not going to work. I think that's probably the key thing. But like you say, you know, a marathon, maximum you're going to be out is what, about 5-ish hours, isn't it? Roughly.
Yeah, 5-6 hours.
Yeah. That's kind of where my marathon times sit. And you can get away with not having to eat real food. I did get a bag of Walkers during one Manchester Marathon because I was getting cramps. So I was like, quick, what do I do for salt quickly? And it was nipping Sainsbury's on the course and grab some crisps. But generally speaking, that you know you can do a marathon without having to take a full picnic or go to an aid station and get a full meal, as it were.
Yeah. My first ultra I did, I was massively underprepared.
Yeah.
Never run a marathon. I did like the Cardiff half a few weeks before, and I was like, yeah, that's enough training, I'll do a half marathon. And I turned up, it was a OTT marathon, ultra. So it's awful conditions as is, like it's start of November in Wales, going over Penavan, and I remember I was nervous the morning of, so I didn't bother eating. Ran to it was the second checkpoint, I think it was like 6 miles in, and I was like, I'll just have like a handful of jelly babies, because that's what was at the checkpoint. I was like, I'll just have that. And then I didn't eat for the rest of the event, and like I didn't drink, like that was it. I was just like, yeah. And it got to the point where, like you're saying, like your body's just like, I've got nothing. And no matter what I wanted to do physically, it didn't help that I tore my hip flexor as well because I was undertrained. But no matter how hard I wanted to push, I just couldn't. And I remember the last, it must have been like 400 metres coming up to Cath Castle, and it's an uphill, and that's where the finish was, and everyone's there like cheering me on, being like, come on, you gotta go quicker, because I was coming close to the cut-off time, and I was there like, oh, I want to really push now, and I tried, and my body was just like, no, you literally can't go any faster. Luckily I did make the cut-off time by less than a minute, so yeah, because everyone was just there like, you're not going to make the cut-off, like, you got to go faster, and I was like, I literally can't go any faster.
I'm dragging myself. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was an awful experience.
Yeah, well, your body was probably eating itself at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it you know, once you've gone through your glycogen stores, what goes next?
Yeah.
It goes to fat, and then it goes to muscle, doesn't it? So you're going through that, and each process being harder than the last.
Yeah, and I remember afterwards as well, there's like, they've got the usual like cakes and things like that to finish, and I was like, I can't eat, like I it's past that point now, like I just cannot eat. Had to get home. I got home, didn't have any dinner, and I was like, I'm going to bed. Yeah, that was a horrible decision, but
learn from it.
Yeah, well, kind of. I did that ultra is the only ultra I've done as of yet, like organised ultra.
Yeah.
So I went back last year and did it, and I was like, right, I am gonna eat, and I was just eating whatever was at the checkpoints. I didn't really have much that wasn't at a checkpoint, but I was like, I'm gonna eat every checkpoint. But I had never planned my nutrition, so I was like, I'll turn up, oh, there's some crisps there, or there's some rice cakes or bananas, and I was just like, I'll just have whatever there.
Yeah.
And that's not enough.
No, I think Epona is the first sort of time that I've paid proper attention to what I need to be putting in terms of calories.
Yeah.
Between each stage, between each checkpoint. I've still got leftover. I didn't eat it all, but I certainly had bagged up calories between the different checkpoints, and then on top of that was topping up from whatever was available as well. Because again, you don't know what's going to happen. You might end up, you could fall over or something. You know, you might end up a bit stuck. You need to carry that with you. And that goes for emergency kit as well. You know, you see some people who will say, "Oh, is it really mandatory? Do we have to take this?" And anyone who is thinking about doing anything, yes, it is. It really is. It's necessary. It's for your own protection, and it will help you when you are stuck. As it's something that I've learned the hard way. When we went as a group to Race to the King, we got caught in lightning storms. It was sort of mid-June, very humid, and there were torrential rain showers, and also thunderstorms as well at the same time. And none of us had really proper taped seam waterproofs, which is what we should have had. And so we all ended up absolutely drenched, soaked to the skin. Then when we eventually got to a checkpoint, the checkpoint had been closed because it was all sort of marquees with metal frames. And so because it was the eye of the storm, they were concerned about lightning strikes onto the metal frame tents. And we got pulled off into a barn, and there were about 12 of us in a barn. I think it was a barn. It was just some sort of outbuilding with no covered doors, and we were absolutely freezing. There was a 1 bar heater between everyone, and we were sat there huddled in foil blankets. So you know, it's when somebody says you need a waterproof, you need a full blanket, you really do, and I take those everywhere now. Even if I'm just going out on Saturday daytime, that kit stays in my pack now. Yeah,
it's crucial. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on there.
No.
Like,
no.
there's a reason why it's mandatory kit.
Yeah.
I was definitely more on my first ultra. I was more in the mindset of, yeah, you don't really need anything.
Yeah.
just turn up and run, because
Yeah.
that's what I'd done at the Cardiff half.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of that as well. You know, it's you don't realise until you actually need it,
Yeah.
and by which point it's too late if you haven't got it.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that, again, you just wouldn't think about on your first ultra, going from road running to trail running,
No.
because it's just like, yeah, road running, you just rock up and you just need your
Turn up and
shoes.
go, yeah.
Shoes, maybe some water,
Yeah.
but there's water stations, so don't really need some water, but
Yeah.
yeah.
When you're on a hill, with nothing for miles around, and the thunder's coming in around you, then it really does teach you those life lessons.
Yeah.
As to how quickly things can change and go wrong. That particular instance, we should have had text messages come through from event control to say that if the thunder and the lightning were less than 30 seconds apart from one another, you should try and seek shelter in a building. And there were no buildings. We were on top of a hill. We were on a farm track. We were next to a metal fence. There was also the part of the message that said if the thunder and the lightning were less than 15 seconds apart, you needed to squat down with your heels together and throw your metal objects 20 feet away. It's like, right, okay. Bearing in mind that the thunder and lightning was about 7 seconds apart.
Oh,
we were
jeez.
there with our poles. Do we have some nice poles? Nice metal poles to conduct a bit of lightning with, maybe. It did make us panic, but again, rightly or wrongly, we did not sit down on the ground with our heels together. We ploughed on, took the chance.
Yeah. It paid off, so...
Yeah, we got to the barn.
Yeah. That must have been, like, terrifying at the time.
It was terrifying at the time, yeah. I think we all sort of thought after that, hell, this is a real sort of like wake up call. This is not messing around here. You know, we're not. The event that we're doing isn't a casualty. You are seriously, you're putting yourself in an element of danger, and that's probably part of the thrill of it.
Yeah. Well, you keep coming back to them, so
yeah.
there's got to be something there that excites you more than scares you.
Exactly. But I think it's important that you do things that do challenge you and scare you a little bit, and also to sort of push the boundaries of, okay, this might not be possible for me to get to the end of, because you don't know for sure until you're there doing it, and there are so many factors that can come into play. There are things you can control, things you can't control, the things that you can, and everything else is percentage down to grit, percentage down to determination. If all of those other things go right and slot in nicely, then that's where you are. But I think it's important to challenge yourself all the time, because where does growth come from otherwise?
Yeah.
How do we change? How do we advance? You've got a choice. You can either sit there as you are, like you said at the beginning. You can either stay there, or you can just see, right, okay, what's possible.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell the people that have got that curiosity, because you can see it in their eyes, can't you? You know that.
when they're talking about a challenge, and it's always the ones where it's like no one knows if they can do it or not. So when I was talking to Jenks before he did Epona about the 100 miles, there wasn't like a terror in his eyes. It wasn't something that's overwhelming him.
No.
It was something that you could see a spark of like, oh, this is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you definitely can see it in them.
It's a yes, this is scary, but yes, I know that I can if all of the things go right.
Yeah.
And I think a level of acceptance that there might be some things that just can't be controlled and it may not happen on the day. I think that happens in any sport, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you think that those sorts of qualities in people that are excited rather than scared to do these things, do you think that's something that they're born with rather than something they've sort of grown up around? Like, what is the difference between those people that do and just don't ever do?
I don't know. That's really tough because I never had that ambition to go out and do this kind of thing. I had like this sort of like big gap of about 20 years where I did zero sport or exercise for all of that time. So I don't think it's something that... Is it something you're born with? Is it your character that defines your will to do something? It might be. That might be something that's always in you. The grit, the determination, those aspects. Physical ability can be trained, right?
Yeah. You
can change that. You can change your mindset to an extent as well. Again, I think that there were periods of time where I was very much a sort of negative Nancy, and didn't think I could, didn't think I had those things in me. But again, a mindset change, like I said, changing to the attitude of yes, let's give it a go, rather than being indecisive about something and never doing anything.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it's in the mind.
I've been really like contemplating this whole idea a lot recently, because when I started Adventure Athletes, it started as pretty much just a podcast.
Yeah.
So I started off by talking to people like yourself who have gone out and pushed themselves and have clearly got those qualities of this is exciting. And I talked to them and they're all like, oh no, I'm a normal person. And in my head that makes sense. It's like, well, yeah, like we're all people, but what's given you that desire, that drive to do this thing?
Yeah.
But now that I'm doing more of like general population, like personal training and stuff as well now, and I've got clients that I'm working with and they're like, I've got no desire to do that. I'm now thinking like, is there a difference, or are they just not at the point where they've pushed themselves hard enough to get excited by that?
Maybe.
Or is it something that they will just never have?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure it out and I just can't.
You can't at the moment.
No.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, because I've got one person who came to me specifically for big challenges. She was like, I want to climb Kilimanjaro. Right. So I was like, okay, we'll do 3 peaks as a test run. Yeah. We've done that now. And then it's like, okay, what's next? And it's like, you are challenge driven. You want that. Yeah. You want what you hear about on my podcast. Yeah. Whereas other people are just like, no, I want to lose a bit of weight. And I'm like, okay, but why do you want to lose weight? Like, what's it for? What's the purpose? Where's the challenge? Because we can lose weight, that's fine. But what's after that?
What's the driver here?
Yeah. So it's interesting to talk to people about, I think.
A concept that we've had, and again, a lot between the women that run ultras, is that we forget that because we are surrounded by people who are all doing big things, big challenges, epic things, we forget that not everybody does it. Yeah. And so you kind of assume that the rest of the population is going to be as excited about it, as enthusiastic, that when you say, I'm going out to do 8 hours training tomorrow, that they're not going to like go and think that you are absolutely bonkers. But we are surrounded in a community of people that all do that, and we forget that it's not normal.
I've been referring to it as like a positive echo chamber, because you always hear about like the negative echo chamber, like
Yeah.
you're stuck in your political views because of the people around you, and that's how like social media algorithms work and everything. But then from doing this podcast, like I'm surrounded by people that run like the amount of people that I know that have run 100-miler.
Yeah.
A marathon just seems like something that everyone does.
Yep.
And then you talk to like more, I don't want to say regular people, but like people that don't run ultras.
People that haven't found their calling yet.
Yeah, and then I'm just like, oh, running marathons isn't an ordinary everyday thing. That's still like 1% of the population
Exactly.
have run a marathon. I just happen to be surrounded by people that run hundreds of miles instead.
Yeah. And I think that there is a community there that is drawn to one another because of it, isn't there?
Yeah.
That do these sort of crazy things and pick up crazy challenges and just to see what's in you.
Yeah, I do definitely feel like an imposter in this community because I haven't really done anything noteworthy in like ultras and stuff. I've just had lots of people that I now consider like really close friends on the podcast, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I just know everyone in the community now, and people are starting to recognize me, and I'm like, I haven't done anything, I just sit and talk. So but it's nice to be like part of it still.
Yeah.
It does make me want to do bigger things though.
Yeah, I enjoy what I do, and I know that I can't go out there and sign up to every ultra event because I'm a back of the pack runner. I'm not a fast runner. Stubborn, really stubborn, and stubbornness knows no end. So if there is no end to the time in which I can take, then that's fine. I will get there. But yeah, I think that understanding the sort of the nature of people, isn't it? And all of those people that have sort of grown together as a community, isn't it?
Yeah. It's incredible to see and like feel a part of. It's just the ultra running community in South Wales is like second to none in my opinion. Like everyone knows everyone, they're all so supportive and just go into these events. Like I've only been to a few and I've been to support some, but the amount of people that just go to support
Yes.
is incredible, and it's just like you're giving up like a whole weekend
Yeah.
just to like maybe even just say hi to someone.
I did some of that yesterday. I didn't do the Edinburgh yesterday, but I did go out to one of the checkpoints and helped out for a while at one of the checkpoints, and then went down to the finish line and helped out there as well. And again, just to go and say hi to some people and say, well done you.
Yeah.
Well done, good job. That was tough yesterday. People had a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen so many. This again, I now know like loads of people that have done the Edam, and I was just like looking on my Facebook, on my Instagram, and I was like, oh, I didn't know they were doing that yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I know at least like 12 people that entered. And I was just like, why do I know these people?
Yeah.
I just feel completely out of my depth with it, but it's amazing to see.
10% of the entire field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all from this podcast. Without this podcast, I wouldn't know any of them. It's mad how quickly like things can change. Like we said, I've only been doing this a year, and now I know like 10% of people that entered the Edam.
Yeah. It's a huge number. I don't know what I want to do next. I don't know whether I want to try to train stronger to become more efficient, or I don't know whether I want to go further. I don't know.
Has the wild horse not piqued your interest?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a big training commitment.
Yeah.
It's a big training commitment, and it's a long way. It's a really long way. I don't know. There was something like in betweeny. There was an in betweeny one that.
There's just not really that many in betweens. Like after 100 miles, it's like okay, now it's logical to do 200. Yeah, and it's just in anything else that wouldn't make any sense.
No.
You wouldn't just be like, oh, I've like squatted 100 kilos. Next one, I'll do 200.
Just random.
Yeah.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't know whether I've got that sort of resilience in me. Although I have, in my mind, I've gone, right, okay, so you're allowed to have this much sleep, and this is how I felt better in the Epona was for sleep, and so that would be okay. But I couldn't do it on my current feet, couldn't do it on my current shoes. I think there's a quest to find the perfect shoes.
Yeah.
I haven't found it.
So the choice would either be longer or faster.
More efficient at the distance.
Yeah. Would that distance be 100 miler again, or would you like pull it back down to 50 k's, 50 miles?
I would like to do 100 miles again. Yeah. People said afterwards, you know, would you do it again? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it again. Without hesitation. I can honestly say yes, I would definitely do it again. I haven't signed up for next year. It's sold out now anyway, so it's the route in reverse.
Yeah.
Next year. I've done it. So I don't know. There's part of my curiosity that says have another go, but then it might not go as well. It could go worse. Might not finish.
Yeah. Have you ever DNF'd as of yet?
I did. I had one DNF on a local marathon to Cardiff, and it was the Ridge Runners Radder and Morganstown Trail Marathon.
That's meant to be quite hard, isn't it?
It is quite hard. It's got the elevation, so I think it's about 4,500 feet of elevation, which is Ben Nevis essentially. Over 26 miles, and yeah, I timed out at the second or third checkpoint because I'd spent an hour lost in bushes wandering quite the rats. So I just got in a right old pickle. My watch was just going berserk at me, beeping every which way, telling me to turn this way, turn that way. There weren't any markers, people had moved them, and I just wasn't good enough at the navigation at that point to get it. And I had a choice. I could either not go to, because it was a clip marker one, I could either not go to the clip marker and mark my card, or go to the clip marker and then potentially time out, and that's what I did. So I wasn't able to make back the time in between there and the next checkpoint in order to get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I did go back and do that one again this year. I wasn't far off the cut-off. It was tight. It's a hard race, that one.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. I don't think I'm going to do that one ever again. No offence.
So when things are getting hard, because undoubtedly by the sounds of things they get hard every single race,
Yeah.
what gets you through it?
Oh my god. So combination of things. It's like, I think ultimately it's the I am not going to let this beat me. That's the driver that gets me to the end every time. I will not let this beat me. That's what gets me there. I did cry on Epona. When I was on my own, I cried several times. I had like a right old pity party on the side of the mountain. I felt very sorry for myself. Very sad. But yeah, that's what drives it. It's like, you know, come on, girl. What are you made of? What have you had to deal with in your life? And why on earth is this bit of running gonna stop you?
Yeah.
I think that you look at what you've had to endure, what you've been through, your past experiences, so the things that make your character. think that those are the things that will really sort of show your true mettle, and also to sort of mark the resilience that you've got in you that will allow you to continue.
Yeah.
I think that's where your true grit comes from, and it's not your physical body. It's in your heart, and I think that's what gets you through the tough times.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's a mindset that you've developed after having your cancer diagnosis?
Yes. Yeah. More so than anything. I think going through the cancer diagnosis, I had to do a lot of work on my self-belief. There were a number of challenges that I had to get through, being terrified of needles, terrified of surgery. Those were the two sort of biggest things. Next on top of that was the fear of the unknown, fear of dying, fear of not making it through, fear of not knowing what the future looked like, fear of what am I going to be left with, what life is this going to leave me with. I did a lot of work on myself. I had counselling, I went to therapy, I had hypnotherapy. I threw everything that I could at it. It was difficult. I was really very sort of distressed about what was happening, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I think it's very difficult to get help with your mental health if you don't know where you need to navigate to. So if you don't know who to ask, if you don't know who to turn to, if you don't know what resources are available to you, it's very difficult to navigate through all of that. I managed it, and I did manage to get help, and I've always said that something that I want to do is try and make things a bit less shit for other people if they ever have to go through that.
Yeah.
So hopefully by speaking out about my personal experiences, it makes a difference to others, and again, and also to give some hope as well, for other people out there that have or have been through or are going through that experience, that there is another side to it, that there is potential recovery. I mean, touch wood, I never go there again. It's there right behind you, but touch wood, I never do. But if I did, I've got all of these resources that are now available to me. I also think in some way it has changed my life for the better. And I feel bad about saying that. I feel bad saying that cancer somehow made things better. But the life I was living before was not a fulfilled one. And I don't know, again, sort of coming back to what drives people and what makes that difference. Is it that threat system of things could be taken away, things could change at any one time? Is it that drives and says, right, okay, let's see?
Yeah. I think it just brings to mind a quote that I've heard many times on like Instagram, and that's, you've got two lives. The first is when you're born, the second is when you realise you've only got one. And that first life scare is what just kicks you into gear, and it's like, oh shit, this is a limited experience.
It's not a rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's not a rehearsal. Yeah, we don't get multiple goes at this life. This is it. It's not a rehearsal at all. You've got to just go out there and grab what you can when you can.
Yeah.
And if you don't try, you'll never know.
That's it. I think that's a good point to start wrapping up the podcast. So with that in mind, with my last question, being, if you could set the listeners one challenge for this week, what would it be?
To do something that scares you slightly, whether that is exploring something emotionally, whether it's exploring something that is more challenging physically than you might have tried in the past. I think that challenge and change is really good for us, and just see where your boundaries are. Just dip your toe in the water, have a go.
You might do 100-miler and think, I could do more than this. So you never know. Put yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on. If people want to follow your journey, see what you end up doing next, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram as @Cath_Thompson. Very original name. I just really couldn't be bothered to think of anything else.
No, it's simple, easy to find. That's exactly what you want. Well, thank you again, and I look forward to seeing what comes next.
Thanks for inviting me.